our Qualtrics skills, and we've talked about evaluation questions, and yesterday heard about some great evaluation projects that are going on in OSU Extension. It's very impressive. And so today, Brian Raison agreed to finish our week off with talking about sharing impact through storytelling and data, and talking about how we tell those great stories about the great work that's going on. So Brian, and Brian is with the ACL department. For those of you who don't know, probably most of you know Brian, pardon me, but I'm going to let you go ahead and get started.
Hey, thanks, T. Oh, could you let me share my screen? We should have checked that. I forgot to ask as people were logging in. I was thinking about doing like a high five activity with everybody, high five each other, but the cameras aren't on. So. Oh, there we go. All right.
There you go. Yeah.
Thank you. So, a year, 7 months, and a few days ago, I've lost track exactly. My cousin and I got in our car, packed up bags, and drove about 6 or 8 hours down into the mountains of Tennessee. And I don't know, have any of you been to Jonesboro, Tennessee? If we were in class, it'd be a lot funner, but this is Jonesboro. This is downtown Jonesboro. We were on what we considered almost a pilgrimage. Our destination is this.
Brian?
My screen work. The National Storytelling. Yes.
We're getting quite a bit of dropout. Not sure what on your audio. Not sure what's going on. Maybe try turning off your video.
Let me stop my video.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'll turn that. And then just holler if anything else. So is that better?
It is.
Our destination was this National Storytelling Festival. On the Storytelling Festival, 47-year history, 3 days with 12 hours a day of storytelling, 10,000 people paying $175 per person. Those are some big numbers and pretty cool when you stop and think about them. But our story had nothing to do with the metrics. We were going to learn the art of storytelling, to learn more about the craft, those rhythms and cadences and timing, the delivery, strategies to improve our own teaching. So that was our why when you really drill down. There are storytelling festivals all over the country. They have gone on for decades. I found even some old historic photos of this. Why do we do this? Why do people love stories so much? Well, they show us impact. They tell us the rest of the story, as Paul Harvey used to say. So today, I want to jump in and talk about how we share our impact, not just through data, but through storytelling as well. These are not mutually exclusive. So what on earth does that mean? So when we think about this, we've got a little bit of cognitive dissonance, perhaps. Data are empirical. We know that. Storytelling, well, that's anecdotal, right? Imagine, subjective, idealized. I mean, it's a story. My grandmother is pictured here, and my mom and uncle there, down in West Virginia, back in the early 50s. My grandmother would say, when we were growing up, if somebody's telling a story, they're telling a lie. And so tell me, what do you guys think? Let me stop sharing here. Are stories anecdotal, imagined, fictional? Is that all they are, or can they be something else? What do you guys think? You can just unmute. You don't have to show your camera if you don't want.
I perceive storytelling as also kind of, journalism and reporting. So I don't think they're necessarily exclusive. And I think for me as a data person, it would be really good for me to improve my storytelling because I could be more captivating to the audience that I'm trying to reach.
Thanks, Amy. I appreciate that. So let's look at the other side of storytelling. Stories can be illustrative. They can provide a context to really bring us into the picture. They can give perspective. They can make that abstract concrete. I'll talk about this as we go along here. I'll give a few examples. They can move us emotionally, physically to action, get us to do things, and they can be true, which is perhaps the best of all, especially when we're thinking and talking about sharing our impacts with funders or partners. So this idea of the data and storytelling are not mutually exclusive. So my proposition today is that the numbers matter. We need to show those. Our funders, partners want quantified results. They want metrics, we always talk metrics. But if we give those metrics meaning, we can really convey actual impacts. We can better show how our work is effecting change and affecting lives. And that, I think, is one of the critical things that we can do through storytelling. So this week, the seminars have been about, with LOD, have been about innovative impacts, evaluation, why it matters, writing good questions, Qualtrics, those good things. And then some examples. Today, I want to talk about how can we give these metrics meaning. And my answer, of course, is through good storytelling. So quick objectives. I want to run through pretty fast why we tell stories, some core principles about storytelling, and then share some examples as we proceed and kind of situate the storytelling in this evaluation and impact reporting and move beyond just reporting the data and talk about some context, how we can make our stories more deliberate. So storycenter.org, really cool place. Hang on a second. I gotta move my bar here so I can see. They talk about these reasons that we tell stories. And the first one isn't as germane to evaluation as we're going to talk today, but it does have a role when we think about personal reflection and growth. The other four, though, and I'll share the second one here, education and awareness, facts, timelines, these other perspectives can really be useful in describing issues or problems with the personal stories in the context can bring it to life. So here's an example. My colleagues, I talked to other folks who teach on campus, and they say, oh man, my highest rated class every semester is when I bring in a guest speaker. And it's a joke, but the reason is those guest speakers are bringing the stories so that the theory meets practice, and you see where that intersection is, and to life dramatically changes how students begin to understand what we're trying to teach in a very formal context. This is the same with extension. With extension, we largely are those guest speakers because we're out there in the field doing the work and then telling those stories as we teach in a non-formal environment. Informal, or not informal, we don't really teach informally. We teach non-formal in our pedagogy and andragogy. So consider that you are in extension that person already who some of the faculty on campus really want in their classroom. Movement building, collective action. And if you've read some of the literature on this, as people make the connections, can be really powerful. The policy advocacy, another example here. Well, when communities have the opportunity to express their concerns, inform debate, abstract data, oh, that's great. Those are telling, and but sometimes they override the personal stories and the voices that can really change or let the people in the decision making, the elected leaders, things like that, understand what's going on. I just had this conversation 2 days ago with a colleague or a friend, and he said he had to give back $1 million grant. That's insane, but he did it because the city council voted it down, and the reason is they didn't think they had enough money to do the match. He said, "Man," as we were talking, and we were talking about storytelling. And he said, "Why didn't I," and it just hit him, "why didn't I bring in," he said, "I've got all these handwritten notes, people telling how our service has impacted their lives in very specific ways, saving lives." He said, "Why didn't I take those in and share those? It might have made the difference in the city saying, oh, maybe we do need this grant. Maybe we will come up with a matching funds." Fifth type, research and evaluation. Stories can assess and document needs, evaluate whether or not those needs and problems are being addressed by existing programs. So here's another one. I just talked to a colleague yesterday that called and said, this is an extension colleague, I won't even say the program or anything else, but just the idea here. Folks in Columbus thought things were great, but guess what? Our program was not reaching big segments of our population. And in this case, it was kind of on the other side of the tracks, if you will, low resource neighborhoods that were not being reached. So the numbers showed good reach and impact, but the story showed this disconnect. So it was very real of what was happening there. So things like that kind of get your attention a little bit and make you go, oh, okay. So let's situate storytelling and evaluation just real quickly. So the Story Center, again, has these principles, core principles of storytelling. Everyone has many stories. So I'm going to switch it from everyone to our programs. So let's look at this. Every program has stories to tell. And so you may believe that your program is mundane, uninteresting, unmemorable, but beneath that, there's a great story. There are great stories. So even if you're thinking, this is just, one of these things that I do for extension, I'm going to challenge you to think about that in a different way and give you an example. I'm going to actually ask you to do it right now. So think of a program, grab a piece of paper or a pencil, and think of a program you do and write it down. There at your home desk, wherever you may be. So just take a second. And then after you've written the name of it, write down a couple of facts about that program. It looks like we've got folks from a number of different programs here, which is fantastic. Okay, do you have a couple of facts written down? I'm going to trust, since I can't see you. So look at one of those facts now and describe in your mind, you don't have to write this out, you could write a bullet point or two if you want, what the purpose or outcomes of that fact or that activity is, or what it was, if it's a past tense. Those purposes, that description is your story. Those make the connections to your people, things, places, events, impacts. And so you can do this with any program that you have. Let me give you an example of one that I thought of last night. So here's the 2013. I was a county director in Miami County. We had formed a food council, and some of our metrics, or some of the activities that we were doing for this program, this food council program, shared use kitchen, local food hub, virtual farmers market, which became a reality, pretty neat project that's still going on. Farm to table dinner, also still going on. And then promoting and educating folks about local food, healthy eating, things like that. So the farm to table dinner had its objectives as well to promote and educate healthy eating, increase local food sales from local farmers, supporting that economy, and bringing people together. So that was pretty cool. Some of the metrics for the couple years when I was there, it's continuing, but I don't have all those new numbers, but over 600 people connected, over $50,000 grossed, increased sales reported from farmers, and I don't have those numbers, but I could go back and find them. Institutional purchasing. So that's great. And, I'm sorry, wake me up when you're done. But here's the story. Here's one of the stories that came out of it from 2016. The farmer told me after it was over, I connected with the food service director at the University of Dayton. They want to buy our produce. We've been trying to get into this market. I was like, man, it was worth it. It was worth it. So those are the things that, grab your attention a little bit. And I want to ask you for some examples here in a minute. So let's just finish up the principles though. And this is the last one that I think is pretty interesting. I'll give you one more quick exercise. We all hear, perceive the world in different ways. And there's no one formula for the story. So let's look at an origin story exercise. So again, think of a program. It could be the same one. And let's call this our program origin story exercise. Now this time, jot down your program's why. Think about that missional thing. Why do you do this program? What's the purpose in life? How do you want, and I do this with when I'm coaching, but or mentoring about somebody, personally. How do you want to be remembered? But this, how do you want your program to be remembered? If you ran into a participant in a year from now or 2 years from now, what would you want them to remember about your program? So jot down one or two things there. Just take a second to do that. I was just talking with another colleague, and she told me a story of one of her program participants in a parenting program that had remembered something that she didn't even remember was in the program. And I thought, how cool is that? So it was one of those sort of, oh my goodness, we did that, and she didn't even know that they had done it. But those are little magical things that happen that you want to try to look for and pay attention to. So now think about how your program began, the how part. It could have been funded from a grant. It could have been something that you dreamed up because you saw a need in the community. As Extension, we do that all the time. Or it could have been a program that Extension's done for years and years, and you've just picked it up, which is all cool. So the secret then is to add those two things together, your purpose statement and your how, and that gives you a program origin story. Then when you add in the result, you've got a package deal. The key is to do it in a short and sweet manner so that it's really tight, really cogent. If you Google like world's shortest stories or something like that, you can find some really good examples out there. But that allows you, the brevity allows you to pair it with metrics and then use that in your reporting. Again, hoping to make those influences on people who are our partners, who are funders, who are helping Extension do this really great work that we do. Okay, here's an example that I thought of and threw together. These are my students from 2 years ago, I think it is. I've taught this for a few years. It's an undergrad class called the Second Year Transformational Experience on campus. Over 2,000 students. Here are some metrics for you, 200 plus faculty. We have these 16 student cohorts, very small groups that we meet with, one faculty member and 16 students. We meet 90 minutes a week during the autumn semester, and then kind of one-on-one or small group proposal writing in the fall or spring semester. I still think it's winter, but they call it spring semester. January, February, March. When the students complete this 1 year, they get a $2,000 grant to support their proposal. And that could be doing an internship or taking a study abroad or taking some kind of a master class, maybe traveling to that class here in the United States, doing a creative project, or a number of different things. They've been collecting research on the impact of working with second-year students, and in a smaller section and getting no faculty member, and they've determined that 94% graduate on time instead of that 5 and 6 year protracted degree. That makes a big difference to our young people when we're getting them out sooner with less debt, et cetera, et cetera. It changes lives. So personally, I presented a 90-minute, one of my weeks, we have 15 weeks that I actually meet with them, but 1 week I presented a 90-minute personal professional development seminar to these 16 students. Great, that's cool. But here's the story. I came in, it was a month later, and one of my students comes up, Brian, I got the internship. I'm like, well, hold on, what internship? I don't remember. And then he told me the story of using what we had taught in class about, in a personal and professional development thing, about writing your personal mission and defining what you want to do, what's most important to you in life, your personal why, kind of Simon Sinek approach. And I suggested to them that they put this on their resume and that they tell anytime they're in an interview, they find a way to weave that in, their story, that personal why, personal mission, to weave that in to the interview. Because I said it will catch the company off guard, because they largely will be expecting students to answer questions about the internship, but not about their mission in life. I said, and you can capture their attention and win them. And he said this was a coveted, hard to get internship at some sort of computer science firm. And he said they hired me that day. They didn't even wait. They said, no one has expressed that to us. He said they hired me that day. And I said, oh my goodness, wow. So here's the secret part. The most important stories aren't stories that you tell about yourself, your program, that kind of thing. The most important ones are those going on inside the heads of your clients or the person that is interviewing you, our partners, our funders. Those stories they're telling themselves that the stories affect how they view the world or form an image of who they want to be or why they might want to support that thing that you're doing or influence those decisions. And so you've got to make that connection to bring them in to your thing. So how do we do that? How do we capture their attention, move them to action, show them good data, but we also tell them good stories. So let me see what time we've got. I've got just a couple more things. It's 25 after. So let's hold this for a minute, and then I'll stop sharing, and we can see if anybody has an example of one of these 5. So if you see one of those that you think you have an example of a story where that was related to education awareness, affecting change, movement building, advocacy, or research, jot that down, and we'll come back and I'll ask you about that. All right, come on, computer. There we go. So here's one that I've got. This person, basically, quick example, hits 3 of the categories: educating, building movements, and policy advocacy. This is Susan Colbert. A lot of you guys might know her. She would be happy if she knew that I was showing you this. But she is amazing. She is a quintessential leader. but she's standing in the back. Notice that. Remarkable work that they're doing. Let me show you a couple of metrics, or well, I don't have metrics right here, but she tells stories in every single meeting, wherever it is, whether it's the president of the university, a guy that I love, or working in her neighborhood, helping families. And as she tells those stories, she affects the funding that comes in to those programs in a powerful way. I could tell you some big metrics and numbers from her. So that's just one example. So key points, and let's wrap. Stories can be illustrative. They can provide that context, which is a huge, huge thing, particularly as we're looking for funding. A lot of times, that's why we're telling our impacts and writing our metrics. Providing that perspective, making the abstract concrete really makes a difference. And then moving us and showing the truth, what's actually happened. The numbers matter. The partners want quantified results, so don't forget that, or don't leave that out. But giving the metrics meaning, conveying those impacts is huge. Can really be a big deal. Here's a quick, let me see. Well, I'll tell you this because I'm in. So OSU Marching Band, I was given a talk in January, and we were there inside the stadium. And we got this huge band practice room. If you've ever been in there, it's so cool to see inside the walls of the stadium. And I gave a different personal and professional development seminar. About 55 students were there. And this is what I challenged them with. I said, do you have a bucket list? Those were my first words. They introduced me that I was some crazy professor coming to talk to them. I said, so do you guys have a bucket list? And they're kind of like, what? I said, a bucket list. And a couple of hands went up. And I said, it doesn't have to be formal, like written down, but maybe in your heads. And a couple of them said, yeah. I said, well, anybody want to share? And somebody wanted to see the Northern Lights, And I said, well, here's a quick question. You realize that having a bucket list means you're thinking about dying? And everybody in the room was like, what? What are you talking about? And I said, what's the nature of the bucket list? It's things we want to do before we die, right? It's that those things in your bucket list. And so we talked about it, because when we realize, and the Dalai Lama writes about this, and Desmond Tutu in this thing, it's a book they call the Book of Joy, I've got it here somewhere. They say if we consider our mortality, then we'll be better able to focus on what matters and what's important. So the bucket list is essentially a story, or some stories of what we want to go have become stories. And when we do that, we can say no to the extraneous things. We can actually give ourselves more time, because when you say no, you automatically increase your bandwidth, your capacity, by not doing those things that are just time wasters. And so at the end of this, I had a couple of students that were like enthusiastically came up to me and said, I'm going to do a bucket list. I'm going to write it down. And I just thought that was, what a fantastic thing. I could tell you that there were 55 students and that they sat for 90 minutes and whatever else. Or I can tell you some of the expressions on their faces. It's really big. So homework, I have to assign homework. It's in my blood. Use simple story construction outlines. Use the description story exercise, and I can send this to you guys. The what is your program, and then the origin story, the how and the why, and then adding that the impact on there gives you a really tight story that you can add to any program. If you add the photographs, the pictographs, infographics, I think you may have talked about a few of those things, and I think we may have a couple of people on the call today who I would love to share have them share, because we have, so data are powerful. Here's a last example, and I'll quit. 4-H youth, we serve 4 million young people. 88 counties, 1,000 youth with disabilities through special needs camps, 20 other accommodating programs. Oh, wow, that's pretty cool. Those are some good data, some good metrics. I love it. Touched. But hold on, those are just numbers. This is a story that I actually heard a mom say. Every other youth organization turned us away. I'm gonna cry because I can hear her voice. They didn't have the capacity or they didn't want to deal with my son's disability. When we tried 4-H, they welcomed us. And my son found a place to belong. Sorry. So you put these things together and you've got a powerful thing. So that's just really quick, talking about storytelling, why it matters, and how we might involve it. So first, just any quick questions or comments about what I just threw at you very quickly in 30 minutes. And then I want to ask for a couple of people that I think are poised to share some infographics, which I'm very excited about for myself because I want to learn from you guys as well. So quick questions or thoughts?
Brian, I think we're all a little teary from that last story.
Oh my gosh, unbelievable.
Absolutely.
That's great.
It was very Disney-like.
Okay, so Amanda, maybe? Or I think there might be 2 people or 3.
I think we have Amanda for sure.
Yeah, I'm here.
Want to share your screen? Do you have an infographic or an example, or and even tell us how? Because that would be great. Because I want to learn.
Yeah, let me make sure my screen sharing is going to work. Can you see my screen?
Yeah, looks great. Quick perks.
All right. So this is a report from a pilot program that was conducted this past summer. So just to give everyone a background on me, my work is largely in nutrition incentives, so providing low-income families with dollars to spend at farmers markets, so addressing food insecurity while supporting small to mid-sized farms. So this was a pilot project between CD in my office and FCS. So my colleague Courtney Wolfel also worked on this. And Brian, you mentioned kind of identifying needs in the community. And this is sort of how that project came about. So our nutrition incentive programs generally only serve SNAP recipients, but we know that there's a large portion of our food insecure families in the county who don't fall within the SNAP threshold. So we expanded that program to also serve WIC clients, which brings that up to 185% of the poverty line. So that's kind of a background on this project. This report was created in Canva, which I'm pretty sure I learned about from Danae. If you're on here, Danae, thanks.
I learned everything from Danae.
And so this report, again, was made in Canva, which is a free service. I traditionally had previously used Adobe InDesign, but the benefit of Canva is it kind of works like Google Docs. So you can work on it with other partners inside the university and outside the university at the same time. So we were able to share this with multiple people to contribute to the creation and the editing of this document, which made it much more efficient for us. We collected a lot of data during the pilot, probably an overwhelming amount because I'm a data nerd. But we felt really strongly that we needed to keep this report to just 2 pages to not overwhelm our funders and to make sure that people actually read it. So here's the kind of the 2 pages. And we focused on a couple different things and tried to draw them out in using some infographics. So we did kind of an overview of the pilot. And then for the impact section, we really focused on some of the numbers. So these numbers are also listed in the text, but again, really drawn out in the document to make them sort of obvious for the skim readers. And we chose to focus on 4 main impacts from our data that we collected, which was the number of families we reached and the financial impact on small farmers, the change in knowledge, the impact on individual farmers markets, and the impact on our partners program. So here is the number of families and the dollars that went to farmers. So we scroll down, this is the change in knowledge. So we did a follow-up survey to gauge whether people had heard of our programs before and how many were interested in using them in the future. So that was pretty simple. This is the impact on other farmers markets or individual markets. So we kind of called out one example for that. And then this is the impact on our partners programs. So I know this is kind of quick, but I just wanted to show you the sort of the 4 pieces we pulled out and some of the graphics we used to represent that information. So again, was made in Canva, very simple. Again, makes collaboration really, really easy. So we tried to make it as least text heavy as possible, which can be really challenging when putting reports together. But I think we did a fairly decent job in terms of balancing the text to infographics. And this is a zoomed out version as well. So again, I would suggest this as a tool. I'm pretty sure I got it from Danae. But our partners were really pleased with this program, and it's and this report has been shared across the state now and a little bit nationally. So this was one quick example that we thought was impactful. And then there's another way that I share impact data sometimes, and that is through mapping. So I'm trained as a geographer and a geospatial analyst. So I've made maps for, it says my screen share is paused. Is it working?
Just now paused, and while you're unsharing and resharing, let me just comment real quickly on something that you said so quickly. I almost missed it. You said, because you just like know so much stuff and it's just in your head, but if you pause for a second, you said for the skim readers.
Yeah.
So for the people that are just skimming over, you're still paused, by the way. Yeah, you're still paused. So we need to tell those stories and the infographics or the data in those succinct ways so that we can catch those people. Because let's be honest, our legislators, slators are busy people. Their aides are busy people. Yeah, your map's up now.
Yeah, I
so
picked up on that too, Brian. Very important.
Yeah.
When she said that.
So keep going. This is fantastic. Thank you.
Okay. So this is a map I created for the nutrition incentive programming that myself and my colleague at Countryside Conservancy run. So we have a large amount of data, as I mentioned, and we're able to, we know exactly which farmers redeemed how many incentives and what zip code they originate from. So again, this is a pretty hefty data set that we have constructed over the years, and this is just this past year's data, so 2019. And so we can talk about nutrition incentives and sales at markets and just show numbers, but numbers aren't always attractive just as text. And so a visual is super helpful. And so in this particular map, you'll see again the nutrition incentives redeemed by farmers across the region based on the zip code they originate from. So this map allows us to expand our impacts a little bit further because if you notice the blue dots on the map, those are farmers markets and where they're located. And those are the markets which farmers participated at. But we know that farmers are coming from across the region to participate at these sites. So if we just mapped the sales for the sites, we wouldn't see the impact actually spans across the region. So we were able to pull that data again and map it by zip code. And what's important about this is that we are able to communicate to elected officials. We can say to the elected officials in Wayne County that our program impacts their county and their constituents, regardless of whether or not there's a participating farmers market in their county, right? So again, by using this data, it tells a way bigger story. Last year, with the data we have access to, we increased sales at farmers markets in Northeast Ohio by over $181,000. But again, if we did not have the ability to look at that data in a deeper way, we would not be able to say to Ashland County or Wayne County or Mahoning and Columbiana that we are impacting their constituents, regardless of whether or not the program is delivered in that exact county. So this is just a cool example of trying to tell a story in a different way, maybe a little bit more of a nerdy way. But again, stuff like this is super important for working with elected officials. So if you have any kind of data you've collected that you can, put to a county level or a zip code level, census tract, census block group, or something like that, you can map it. So, and if you can create any kind of geographic identifier with your data set, you can do something like this. And so this is something I'm specialized in, and I've worked on a couple projects across the university to create maps. So if you have a story you want to tell with a map, I'm happy to work with you and help you do that.
And that's a nice offer.
That is. I am so, Amanda, I love that map. I love maps, but I just was thinking, and Brian, I'd be interested to hear your thoughts. I mean, I never thought of the map as a story, as part of storytelling, but it just, I mean, as soon as I looked at it, I started formulating a story in my head about that data.
Oh, yeah, it's amazing to think about people, because we know people travel, but if we don't see it, then it's harder to get that picture in our minds. But yeah, it makes perfect sense. Oh yeah, people drive
Mm-hmm.
at the farmer's market. Yeah, they're spending money. Yeah, oh, that is impacting my county, even though I'm not in that particular geographic, that's huge.
Yeah.
Especially for extension work, because
Mm-hmm.
many of our programs have that reaching effect. That's
All right,
fantastic.
I'll stop it now.
Thank you so much, Amanda. Was there anybody else? I can't remember. Debbie, you or T may have known. I don't remember if anybody else had a share or something.
That's all I had on my list. Brian?
Okay.
But if anybody else on here would like to share, please
Yeah,
do.
if you got an idea or something you would like to
Mhm.
share, or other questions for Amanda or me. Oh, ArcMap, yeah.
ArcMap. Mm-hmm.
So Brian,
Well,
I've got
you.
one.
Oh yeah, go ahead, Jerry.
I was just going to say, so maybe from attending that conference or anything else that you've been to, for those of us who are interested, but maybe don't think we're the best storyteller that we could be, are there any tips, like 2 or 3 tips that you've picked up or heard of for people to improve their storytelling?
Sure, that's a great question. Thank you. So number one, I tell people this all the time: watch stand-up comedy. Turn it on, whether you have, excuse me, Netflix or whatever, or if you have an antenna, which we have at our house, we at PBS. PBS has stories from the stage, and so there are storytellers. They've got a couple different StoryCorps. You can watch on the radio or listen on the radio, or tune in through your computer, of course. And so just watching those. I mean, listen to the content, sure, the laughter, the jokes, we all need some of that too. But look at how they deliver the story. Look at when they bring you in and get to the climax and then the resolution or whatever it may be. Think about my delivery of the very last one that I showed you. I started with some data, some metrics. Isn't that great? OSU reaches special needs audiences. But then I gave you, I paused, didn't I? I didn't just jump right in and turn to that next slide. I just gave it a second. That makes a difference. And so, yeah, so watching, so Jared, that's a great question. I try to learn, I learn from my students. I ask whether it's non-formal extension work or in class on campus or online, because I also teach online. And I ask for their feedback and to get their input on how to improve or ideas that they have, because they're out there in the world. They see all kinds of great storytelling or teaching. And so they can share great examples as well. And we can really learn together, which is kind of my approach. Let me look at the chat real quick.
Thank you. Yeah, it's good advice.
Well, yeah, thanks, Jerry. So Brian Butler, you're saying consider moving things to online setup. What things? Which track? You talking Amanda's?
Question for Amanda. Yeah, I guess I could have sent it right to her, but.
What is the question?
Oh, hey, just yeah, the capabilities with ArcGIS Online that we have access to. Just didn't know if you ever thought about migrating some of your data and shape files over to the online setup. to see if like build something that's kind of interactive and could live on the web and folks could dive into the data a bit more.
Yeah, I've used ArcGIS Online a little bit. It doesn't have the same like full set of capabilities as ArcMap, so I just tend to be a desktop user, but I have created a couple of the online maps in the past, but they just, you know, they don't look as nice as that, the static one. So there is a benefit for it being interactive, but I think there's some limitations. But yeah, the university has a license, so anybody, you know, can do that. So that is an option.
Yeah, totally agree. I think, yeah, creating static PDF maps from desktop is definitely a nice way to share complicated data. You have more control over kind of what it looks like, right? So
yeah,
the desktop version, I think, is cool to sort of play around with your data, but maybe not sort of showcase or, you know, make it public, right?
yeah. I mean, if you want that map where you can zoom in and out,
Yeah.
then it, you know, it has to be on the online version.
Yep.
So.
So, Brian, I wanted to ask you, the Story Center, that link you gave us to the Story Center, have you participated in any of their workshops
Yes.
or
It's
webinars?
probably been a year.
Okay.
Or so, yeah. And there are others. There are free ones out there. There are purchased, you know, ones that you can take. At the National Storytelling Festival in Jonesboro, they actually have, you can come early. And I was teaching, I couldn't get away early to go, but they actually have a day before of workshops with storytellers, national, internationally known storytellers that teach you about the craft. And so it's kind of a cool, and I hope to do that someday. That's one of my goals. I'd love to do that. So, of course, it may be online if it's soon.
Yeah. Oh, Rachel said she would love a session on ArcGIS. I'm with you, Rachel. Man, I love those
sounds
maps.
really cool.
Ooh.
I think we could make that happen. Maybe there's a, you know, there's a little bit of a learning curve, but if you're tech savvy and you like data, you can figure it out for sure.
Other comments, questions? Well, we're at 10 of. It is the Friday before the long weekend. Brian, I can't think of a better way to have spent this time thinking about storytelling, and Amanda seeing your maps and thinking about all of this. It's just put a shot of energy into me thinking about data and stories.
Thanks, T. And go out there, find some stories. I'll tell you one more quick secret. I write things down a lot of times. I just forget. But if you just make a couple of notes, and I'll put it in the program, I'll like go to my course folder if it's something that I think would be really good for one of my classes, one of my graduate classes, for example, or for an extension program. I'll open up that PDF or PowerPoint or whatever, wherever I keep that that I'm going to teach again, and I'll put it in there just on a slide and a big thing, and then I'll format it later. But I just put it in there so I'll remind myself, because that's where consistently students say it's when you brought it to life and you gave the real example that it made me understand. Theory, meeting, practice, that intersection. It's really powerful. So thanks, T. I'm really appreciative to be here.
Okay, then we're going to sign off for this evaluation bootcamp week. We have our reporting week next week, so be sure to join us. We won't be here on Monday, but we'll be here Tuesday through Friday. So that'll be posted on our website and on the Facebook page. Thank you.